I was 16 years old, lying on a cold, sterile gurney, blood soaking the thin hospital blanket. And the doctor was frantically telling the nurse I needed emergency surgery now to stop internal bleeding, maybe even to save my leg. And what did my own mother say? The woman who was supposed to be my protector, my advocate, the person who loved me most in the world. She was on the phone. I could hear her tinny, irritated voice echoing from the speaker of the attending physician's phone as he pleaded with her for consent. She sighed a deep, exasperated sound, and then she delivered the words that sliced through the pain and the fear like a surgeon's scalpel. Asterisk, asterisk. If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for paperwork. We're at the spa. Asterisk, asterisk. Seriously, I want to know, right now, as you're listening to this, was I wrong for what I did to her and my sister after that? Because the moment I woke up, everything had changed and the record showed a new legal guardian. The story, the complete nightmare, began like any other dull, obligation-filled Sunday. It was a mandatory family gathering at my Aunt Carol's house. One of those loud, potluck affairs where everyone drinks too much cheap wine and discusses property taxes. My name is Leo, and at 16, I wasn't exactly thrilled to spend my precious weekend listening to my Uncle Bob's theories about the stock market. But I went because my mom, Sarah, insisted. Sarah was, and I suppose still is, a woman obsessed with appearances. Everything about her life had to be perfect. The house, the car, her clothes, and especially her public image as the effortlessly elegant and successful single mother. My older sister, Chloe, who was 19 and already absorbed into Mom's world of designer brands and manicures, was her perfect sidekick. Chloe and Mom had a bond that was less about mother and daughter and more about two exclusive members of the same high-status club, a club I was definitely not a part of. I was the quiet one, the one with the dusty guitar in his room, the good, but not great student, the one who asked for hiking boots instead of a new phone. I was an accessory that clashed with the outfit, and my existence was tolerated, not celebrated. At the party, things were typical. I sat in a corner, scrolling through my phone, occasionally nodding to an elderly relative. Mom and Chloe, however, were in their element, holding court on the patio, laughing a little too loudly, making sure everyone knew they were about to jet off to a new, expensive day spa they had just discovered. They talked about their treatments and their wellness journey for almost an hour, conveniently forgetting that I was standing right there, feeling completely invisible. Around 4 p.m., Mom declared that she and Chloe had to leave promptly to make their 5 p.m. appointment. She didn't even look at me when she announced it. Leo, you're old enough to get yourself home. Take your bike. It's only a few miles. She tossed me the keys to the shed where my beat-up mountain bike was kept, and just like that, they were gone. A flash of expensive perfume and the roar of her luxury SUV speeding away. They didn't offer me a ride. They didn't even say goodbye to Aunt Carol properly. They had a spa to get to, and I was an afterthought. I didn't mind the bike ride, usually. It was a nice route, mostly back roads through the suburbs, but it was getting dark, and I was tired. As I was making the last turn onto my street, which was poorly lit and had a long, downhill slope, a car suddenly swerved out of a driveway without looking. I had maybe half a second to react. I slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. I went over the handlebars, my bike crumpling beneath me. The force of the impact sent me sliding across the rough asphalt. The driver, a young guy who was clearly terrified, rushed out immediately. He was babbling apologies, and I just remember a searing, blinding pain in my right leg and shoulder. I tried to stand up, but my leg was useless. It felt warm and wet blood. The driver immediately called 911. The next few hours were a blur of sirens, blinding lights, and overwhelming pain. The paramedics were amazing, keeping me calm as they stabilized my leg and strapped me onto the stretcher. I was rushed to the emergency room. My biggest concern, even through the agonizing pain, was getting hold of my mom. I managed to ask a kind nurse to call the number listed on my insurance card. That's when the real horror began. The doctor, a serious-looking woman, came over to my bedside. She told me I had a severe compound fracture in my tibia, a dislocated shoulder, and more worryingly, signs of internal bleeding that needed immediate attention. They needed parental consent for the surgery, and they needed it right now. The nurse had called my mom multiple times. No answer. She was probably already under the blissful spell of a Swedish massage. They tried Chloe. Also no answer, likely enjoying a facial. Eventually the doctor got through, not to my mom's personal cell, but to the spa's main line. My mom, Sarah, was furious to be interrupted. I could hear the muffled conversation, snippets of the doctor explaining the seriousness of the situation, the necessary surgery, the risk to my life and my limb. And then there was the silence, followed by that awful dismissive sigh, and the line I'll never forget. If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for paperwork. The doctor looked at the nurse, her face a mask of shock and professional disgust. She ended the call and then turned back to me. Her expression softened with pity. She said, Leo, we're going to help you, okay, but we can't wait. I'm going to try and reach your father, if you have one. My parents had been divorced for years. My dad, Daniel, lived 3 states away and traveled constantly for work, but we were close. He was the one who taught me to ride my first bike, who always called to ask about my music, the one who didn't care about mom's high society drama. I gave the doctor his number, praying she could reach him. While they tried, the pain was escalating. I was terrified. But more than the fear of the surgery, more than the fear of losing my leg, was the soul-crushing realization that I meant absolutely nothing to the one person who was supposed to be my safe harbor. My own life was less important than a pedicure. They found my dad. It took a few frantic calls, but they finally connected with him. He was in an airport lounge, preparing to board a flight to Asia. The doctor told him everything, leaving out no detail, including my mother's horrifying quote. Dad didn't hesitate. He told the doctor, do the surgery now. I don't care about the flight. I'm getting on the next plane back. I'll sign whatever you need. He was on a flight within the hour, completely abandoning a major international business trip. The difference between the two parents was stark, and at that moment, it wasn't just physical pain I felt. It was the sharp, clarifying pain of seeing the truth about my mother and sister's shallow, self-centered world. The consent was given, and they wheeled me away. I was in surgery for 6 agonizing hours. When I finally woke up, the first person I saw was my dad. He was sitting by my bedside, his face etched with worry and exhaustion. He hadn't slept. He told me the surgery was a success, but I had a long, difficult road to recovery ahead of me. He held my hand, and for the first time since the accident, I felt truly safe. He'd flown across the country, checked into a hotel, and hadn't left my side. He asked me what happened with my mom. I told him every single detail, ending with the exact phrase I'd overheard. His jaw tightened and his eyes went cold. He didn't say much then, just squeezed my hand and said, "She's not going to get away with this, son, not this time." For the next 2 days, my mom and Chloe didn't show up. Not a text, not a call, not a wilting flower. Nothing. They were too busy recovering from their spa day, I guess. On the 3rd day, my dad, dressed in a sharp suit and looking like the formidable lawyer he used to be before he focused on business, walked into my room with a small stack of papers. He sat down and told me what he had done. He hadn't just flown across the country to sign a consent form. He had flown in to initiate a legal battle. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. A 16-year-old kid with a broken body, a broken spirit, and the opportunity to completely escape the toxic environment my mother had created. Before I tell you what happened next, what my dad set in motion, and what was written on those hospital records when I finally got a look at them, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have forgiven your mother? Or would you have taken the opportunity to cut the cord forever? My dad explained that my mom's words, "If it dies, let me know. I don't have time for paperwork," had been overheard by multiple hospital staff. The doctor who took the call was so disturbed that she documented the conversation in my official medical records. My dad, leveraging his legal knowledge and hiring the best family attorney he knew, used that documented neglect and abandonment in a time of life-threatening crisis as grounds for an emergency motion for sole legal and physical custody. Since I was 16, my preference in who I lived with held significant weight, especially given the clear evidence of emotional and medical neglect. He had already filed the paperwork. He just needed me to confirm my decision. I didn't even have to think about it. The memory of my mom's voice, the sheer indifference, outweighed every single fleeting moment of kindness she'd ever shown me. I looked at the papers, at the space for my signature, and without a moment's hesitation, I signed. When the hospital record was updated, the name under legal guardian was no longer Sarah, but Daniel, and I was transferred out of my mother's world and into the care of my father. The confrontation, of course, was spectacular and terrifying. My mom finally showed up the next evening, not because she cared, but because the hospital staff, recognizing Dad's legal action, politely but firmly told her she was no longer authorized to access my medical information and had been temporarily barred from my room without supervision. She stormed in, smelling of expensive floral perfume, her perfect blowed, wry slightly ruffled with Chloe trailing behind her, looking confused and annoyed. "What is the meaning of this, Daniel? I'm his mother, and where is the attending physician? I want to speak to the hospital administrator," she shrieked, totally ignoring me. My dad, who had been quietly waiting for her, stood up. He was calm, which made him all the more menacing. "The meaning, Sarah, is that you are no longer Leo's legal guardian. The meaning is that you forfeited that right when you told the doctor you didn't have time for his life, saving surgery because you were at a spa." He spoke the words slowly, clearly, so they couldn't be missed. The blood drained from my mother's face. Chloe gasped. My mom started to stammer, trying to lie, trying to backtrack. "That's a ridiculous lie. I was in shock. I was coming right after. You can't do this, Daniel. This is kidnapping. You'll never get away with this." Dad just tilted his head. "It's already done, Sarah. Emergency custody was granted based on documented medical neglect in a critical situation. And Leo, your son, signed the papers agreeing to live with me, 3 states away. The only paperwork you need to worry about is the one I've served you with for child support. We'll be leaving the hospital and flying out as soon as Leo is medically cleared." He then leaned in, his voice dropping to a fierce whisper that still made the hair on my arms stand up. "You showed me exactly what you value, Sarah. It's not your son. It's your manicures, so enjoy them, because you won't be seeing him again for a very long time." The ensuing silence was deafening. My mom was escorted out by hospital security after she started screaming and throwing a vase of flowers. Chloe, bless her, looked at me, not with concern, but with fear that this would disrupt her social calendar. She didn't say a word as she followed my mom out, and that was the last time I saw her face to face. The aftermath was swift. My dad settled the divorce, which had been a messy, lingering affair, finally ending it with my mother paying him significant child support. We moved to his town, and I enrolled in a new school. My recovery was difficult, involving months of physical therapy, but my dad was there every step of the way, helping me do my exercises, driving me to appointments, and just being a dad. My new life was quieter, less glamorous, but infinitely more real and full of love. My mother tried to fight the custody arrangement, but her documented lack of involvement and her past history of prioritizing her social life over my needs didn't help her case. The final order confirmed my father as the sole legal and physical guardian, and my mother was granted supervised visitation rights that she never once exercised. She never called, she never wrote, She simply deleted me from her perfect picture life. I sometimes wonder what she thought when she received the official paperwork, the final decree that showed new legal guardian, Daniel last name. Did she feel a pinch of regret? I doubt it. She was probably just annoyed by the complexity of the legal forms. But for me, that little line on the medical record was my ticket to freedom. It was the moment I realized my life was worth more than a spa appointment, and it took a near-fatal accident to show me who truly loved me. So, was I wrong for taking the opportunity my father gave me to cut the toxic ties with a woman who valued a facial over my life? Absolutely not. I didn't get revenge. I got justice and a better family. Like this video if you were on my side and think my mom got exactly what she deserved. Subscribe for more shocking stories like this one that prove that blood isn't always thicker than water. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I'm really curious to know what you would have said to my mom if you had been my dad. I'll see you all in the next story.